What's the difference between editing this
It's a present. You always wanted a puppy, right?
and editing this?
It's not really much different than what we're doing on a $200 million movie. You're telling a story and it's designed to get a specific reaction from an audience. That's what we're doing too. We're just doing it at a level that costs a lot of money, and then you got to get a lot of money back.
Black Adam is killing it in the cinema. And the biggest reason is that they made an extremely flawed character likable through editing.
This is very dramatic. This is intense. Wow, this is a thing. Joke.
Mike Sale edited Black Adam.
And the thing that sets Mike apart from the rest is that when it's perfect, he goes further.
After a while, your brain is saying, no, man, that's good what you have. Don't worry about that. That's like a big warning sign. And I'm just like, how do I make this better?
Despite working with budgets that may never exist on YouTube, Mike presents free secrets that are highly actionable for any editor at any level. Especially in the past year or two, I think people have really discovered, especially that what would be the next generation have discovered editing, and they're falling in love with the craft and psychology, and I love talking about, rather than X transition or how to do X effect and After Effects, it is the storytelling. It is what happens if we have X shot play 2 frames more. What will that say? And so people are really, really falling in love with that philosophy so much sooner now, and so that's why we love talking about it right now.
Yeah. And the reality is everybody has a cinema camera in their pockets.
Yep.
When I sit at home and watch videos, whether it's on like TikTok or little things that people make on Instagram or whatever, YouTube, I watch that stuff and you can see the rapidly developing sophistication coming as people start to realize, oh, you can do this. You can tell a joke by cutting to this. You can, it's really fun to watch. And what you learn is, a lot of people are funny, a lot of people are fantastic, and a lot of people make emotional things that just, some 58-year-old dude like me can sit at home and start to tear up watching somebody play their acoustic guitar, and I think that's great.
Seeing, let's just say, what some of the content that is being made today, what is it that they're doing specifically that's probably exciting you the most?
All the little effects, like when they swipe from one thing to another. I mean, that's super fun, I think, as like an editing trick. And the cool thing about that stuff is that's been done, since silent movies, right? Like it's one of the first tricks, right? And so it's and what's interesting to me is like all the unique ways people figure out to use those tricks to get a reaction or to get you to watch what they're doing. And really, it's not really much different than what we're doing on a giant $200 million movie. And they're like, oh, no, I'm just making a little thing. And I'm like, no, but here's the thing is you're making something and you're telling a story and it's designed to get a specific reaction from an audience. And that's what we're doing too. We're just doing it at a level that costs a lot of money, and then you got to get a lot of money back, right? But it's not really a different thing. It's just a different scope of thing.
With that in mind, with that philosophy, we would love to show you one of the scenes you had edited in Black Adam, and we'd love to see what were the challenges you had editing that scene, what did it look like from the beginning, and then the processes that you got to get it to where it was on broadcast.
Sure.
I told you, stop killing people.
They look alive to me.
Because I saved them.
Well, that's why I waited until you were there. I got the information I needed. No one died. I did it your way.
He does have a point.
I know it got lost in all the confusion, but we still have some issues to settle here. There are only heroes and there are villains.
You think yourself a hero, but you would let these criminals go free.
Heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
One of the things we played with on that section was the timing of the music. And basically, we wanted to make sure that in this scene, we amplified and highlighted Black Adam's line, "Well, I do," right? Because it's really the central piece of his character. It's the conflict of this movie, right? And especially if you have an understanding of comics and comic book characters, like one of the things that really separates Black Adam from all other sort of comic book heroes is that he doesn't really have the exact same moral code as most of them who like wouldn't necessarily kill people. They would just sort of disarm them, right? Or if they did inadvertently kill a person, they would feel really bad about it, right? But he has more of like a different moral code than that. And this scene sort of sets up that conflict. So the main thing, there actually were, I think, a few trims in there that we made over time, maybe a line here or there. But it was all about getting the pace and rhythm to land exactly on that almost a trailer moment live.
Heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
Like sometimes when I see these scenes, because, it was unfinished for a whole year where we didn't have all the finished shots, but it was only finished for like a week and then I was off the movie. So when I see the scenes, I'm still watching it going, oh, the shots, they came in.
You're having to work with a movie that's effectively not made. What are the challenges that you have when, to an extent, it's difficult to visualize the movie that you're making?
Well, we have a lot of tools. I mean, first of all, the previs world is unbelievable now. I mean, they make these animations that look like, they kind of look like video games, but they're really good, right? When you're watching it, it's a little deceiving because it's not like you're watching like storyboards or stuff. I mean, it looks like a movie, it feels like a movie, but it's not actually the movie. So the biggest challenge is, sometimes because it's like almost like a video game or a cartoon, like you want to cut things out. And then you realize you have like Bill Westenhofer as your visual effects supervisor and you go, oh, he'll probably make that shot look really cool. I better not cut it out, right? That's kind of a battle, especially for me, like coming from comedy, because, in a comedy, like you after you shoot, I mean, you can very quickly in 10 weeks or so get a comedy to kind of fighting weight and feeling like a movie and playing like a movie. But on something like this, it really takes like, we kept saying it takes the full, every minute of the game, right? Like we're going to be playing right down to the last second of the game.
So when you're working on some of those VFX fight sequences, what do you get when you start editing and when you start touching the project? And what's the biggest challenge to going from there to the finished product?
When we were taking different passes, what you're doing is you're carefully trimming and you're carefully looking for ways to amplify, right? Because you all already have something that's great. Like, so it's not like you're sitting there going like, oh my God, I have to make this work. You're really sitting there going, what would make it better? And sometimes it's adding a little bit back or it's restructuring the order of shots, because sometimes when they do the previs and you don't have the actual actors close up, you have a tendency to have wider shots, more. And then when you get the real actors, like you want that character feeling, so you need to find the places to get to them. And so a lot of it was just simply like sort of elevating stuff and making sure like each micro beat in an action scene really was clear, concise, and working and maximizing the potential of each one of those moments.
With me and Jordan, we're freelance editors. And so we bring in, and so like X creator comes in, hey, we need you to edit a video. We do what we need to do. We send it to them for feedback. And so like through like Frame Mario, and we do like the back and forth in that way. Is that kind of the same thing? Let's just say working with a director, working with a studio, the producers. Like, do you just put Black Adam on Frame.io?
No. I mean, in our cutting rooms and everything, we're pretty bunkered up in there, and but in terms of like showing stuff for the directors or producers, we often have access to screening rooms and facilities. It's all pretty cool. But in terms of like playing stuff and showing stuff, and you can actually do a little experiment in your world to see if I'm right about this. But like, sometimes when I'm playing the movie, I think, who am I playing this for today? I'm playing it for, say, the director. And I think, well, what is the director going to think about this version, And then I go, oh, gosh, I cut out that shot that took 25 takes to get. And I think, he might not like that. He might not like that. Or they might not like that, right? So, if you're cutting for each other, you could do an experiment where you think like, oh, I wonder how he'll react to that. I wonder how he'll react to that. And if you watch it, you'll feel differently about what you made, thinking about what the other person will feel. You know, they're often the people I show scenes to, you know, and that's a tough job for them because I may not be exactly wanting to get notes, but yet I want notes, you know, but I've been working really hard on a scene, or, you know, I can't make people laugh. I don't want them to fake laugh at something, but I also don't like it when they don't laugh if I'm doing a comedy, right? So they have, I would say, be honest but tactful. Don't break me, but you have to be willing to tell me the truth, right? You have to be willing to tell me the truth. But the real truth is this, and you'll know this if you're making stuff. When I play something for somebody, almost doesn't matter who it is, it's like I'm watching what I made for the first time. And I know before they say anything when it doesn't work, because I have a very strong feeling while I'm watching it. And that feeling is shame.
I felt that.
I'm sitting there, why did I put that take in? Why did I do this, right? Because I know, like, I don't have to wait for them to tell me. I'm like, oh gosh, that didn't work, you know? And so it's a hard thing, like, to be willing to do that. And it's something I've actually gotten much better at over time, is be willing to show people stuff and know that, have the confidence that if it's not working yet, I'm going to find a way to make it work.
I've done exactly that as well, where it's like, I didn't know, I was struggling with a scene. I didn't know what was wrong with it. And so I asked my partner to watch it. And then the moment she started watching it, I instantly saw what was wrong with it. I was like, there it is. It was just the moment we get someone else looking at it, without even seeing their reactions, I can then instantly tell what I've done wrong with it. And so, yeah, I think just putting yourself in a different perspective straight away can see, how is this working for other people?
It's the same thing when we go do the test screenings and there's 300 people. I mean, we're sitting in the audience and I'm feeling where the movie works and where the movie doesn't work, you know? And then you remember that when you go back in the editing room, you know those places that need more love, as we like to say.
So after those test screenings and you figured out what works and what doesn't work, what do you do next?
You try to make sure you don't break the things that work, but yet you want to continue to elevate the film every day, which you can do by finishing visual effects, little trims and things with music, the mix, a lot of the technical color timing. You can continue to elevate and elevate and elevate and elevate a movie long after you pretty much know what's going to be in it.
I follow the philosophy. It's not about cutting it out. It's about telling it better.
Right. I would tell you, like, the last thing I want to do is cut stuff out. Like, everybody always thinks editors, they come in and they cut everything out. But like, I'm actually, it's easy to cut things out. Like, most things can just be removed from a movie. Any joke can certainly be cut out of a movie. Like, there are whole scenes that you probably could figure out a way to cut out if you really wanted to. I mean, there's lots of stuff that could come out, but to me, that's like easy. And I don't like to do that early. What I do like to do is try to make it work. And then if it doesn't seem to be helping the film, then you make trims. What I find out a lot is you think that you're going to be lifting these whole scenes, but ultimately it's about condensing each scene. You tend to shrink more scenes and you don't throw so many away.
So how do you know what to cut out of a certain scene and when you should get out of a scene?
Of course, if there's redundancy, you can take it out, right? And that could be redundancy within a scene. But more often than not, what it is like something we set up here is also being said over here. And when you're reading a script, you don't really notice that you're saying it twice. But when you watch a movie, it just happened a few minutes ago and you remember it. There's things like that are kind of constant. It's pretty much unavoidable. If the audience is not engaged or if they don't feel engaged, that's when, a scene is too long or needs to be tightened, And in terms of endings of scenes, I feel like a lot of times when we start, a lot of scenes have a very defined and clear beginning and like a middle and an end. Like each scene is like a little movie because that's kind of how you would put it together, right? But when we're done, like a lot of times you almost don't notice each scene, like because we're sort of not letting a scene quite come to a full conclusion. You know, we're sort of cutting off before it gets to that ending, you know, so that it's driving from one scene to another, to another, to another.
So audiences don't get that satisfaction at the end of a scene and then check out. They're like, oh, frick, like there needs to be something else. I'm going to keep watching to find out what the solution to that problem is that scene presented. Correct.
Like you pull them into the next scene.
We don't quite give them everything. And so there's a continuation or a flow. I think you said it in a really fascinating way as well. And so they're constantly responding to each other and it creates that momentum.
Again, that's like getting away from just looking at scenes, which we do a lot. Like, you know, some of the scenes in this movie, I might spend 2, 3, 4, 5 days just working on that one scene, you know, but then also you have to look at like, you know, sections of the movie and go like, okay, how does this play as a whole piece? I am an audience first editor. You know, I started performing on the stage when I was a little kid, like doing local theater and stuff. And I loved movies. So I actually worked at a movie theater and I'd stand in the back of the theater and I'd, you know, see the movie so many times that I'd start watching the audience, you know, and I've been around a while. And like some of the movies I got to see were like E.T. or, you know, even when I was like 12 years old, I remember seeing the original Rocky movie with Sylvester Stallone. And in that movie, people were standing up in the theater going, kill him, you know, kill him, Rocky. You know, like they were cheering during the fight like it was an actual boxing match, right? When I'm working on any kind of film, like when I'm working on a comedy, I want the audience to laugh out loud, a lot, hard, over and over again. And I want them to come out of that movie and go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I didn't hear half the jokes. We got to watch it again, right? And in a movie like Black Adam, what I'm trying to do is have the moments where they're supposed to react, they react, right? And so when you get to like the end of the movie, I want them to cheer in the right moments and I want you to feel emotion in the right moments. And until that, I feel that that's happening, I'm not going to stop or be satisfied with that part of the film.
What was that specific moment in Black Adam?
I'll try to do it in a way that isn't too spoilery for people. You know, there are things that happen to important characters that are emotional, and I want people to feel those emotions. Obviously, when Black Adam makes his big third act decision of what he wants to be and what he's going to do, I want you to get a little rise out of that. And, you know, when he's battling his arch nemesis, I want you to have the appropriate reactions at the conclusion of that fight, right? And in this case also, we had a great love-hate bromance going with Hawkman and Black Adam throughout the whole film. So I was hoping that conclusion would also be fun, tie into the story, and be satisfying when it was done.
What are the common misconceptions when you're editing a superhero movie? Because that's just way different than, you know, you're just your average feature film.
I'll give you one of my favorite ones. The idea that somehow nobody cares or they don't care or that it was lazy, like there was lazy. You hear a lot, lazy writing, or this actor just walked through his performance and took the paycheck, right? Or things like that. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 36 years. There is anything I ever worked on, anything, even the worst thing, the lowest budget thing I ever worked on, where I could find a single person that didn't care about what they were doing. Like, we may fail, and we might not make something great. But I can tell you, every single person for every single minute cares deeply about what they're doing. And they care deeply about the fans and the fan reactions. I mean, you know, we go on there. I go on Twitter and read stuff. I don't know everything about all that stuff, but I care. And you know, we want people to like the movie, and we care about their reactions. And nobody is just walking through anything. I mean, we're working to the bone, all the time. We're working many hours, the whole drill, staying late, and we're passionate about it. So when we get a comic book movie, I mean, we know it's a big arena, and the canon that precedes it, not only in film, but also the comic book world, means a lot to us. And we want to try to add to that in a significant way that helps that. That might be the biggest misconception, I think, that maybe people don't care or they don't think about the fans or any of those things. I don't think that's true at all.
I've looked at comic movies and I'm like, oh, no one cared. But you're giving me the perspective. I'm like, no, in Hollywood, in some of the biggest movies of that year, everyone is putting their heart and soul into it. They care for this movie. They love this movie. They put everything, all of their energy they can into this movie to make it the best thing that they can be. And that, for me, is a beautiful thing, that passion is the most powerful motivator to make this the best thing you can. And it's just nice that I've personally just made that connection. It's just like passion is everywhere. So when you're making content, whether it be a TikTok or a multi-million-dollar movie.
I'll tell you, like when I work on a movie, even if I have a day off, I'm just editing it in my head, right? Like it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing. And sometimes for years after the movie's over, I'm like, maybe I should have done this, like it's not something that like I just punch the time card and go home, I mean, we're in it and we want to win, however you define that, but that's what we're trying to do, I just always go back to that kid who loved movies. So what I'm trying to achieve is to give people an experience that they have with their family and friends or whomever in a theater. And that moment where you just come out and you're buzzing and you're like, wow, that was great. And you kind of remember that, for the rest of your life.
With all of the experiences that you have had as an editor, and then let's just say you had the opportunity to talk to yourself at 18 years old, who's probably just discovering editing, what advice would you give to them right now?
The advice that I would probably go back and give myself is very simple. And that is, you can do this. You're going to be able to do this. It is a hard world to work in. It's hard to break into show business on any level. I started at a very young age. It took me a while to feel confident enough that I could maybe go all the way to doing feature films. It's really hard to sort of work your way through TV, documentaries. I've cut everything, reality shows. I've cut cooking shows. Like if you look at my resume, which goes back a ways, I've done almost everything. And it took me, 20 something years before I got a feature film front credit. And I never knew the journey would be that long. The good news for me is I liked the journey and I liked to edit. And to me, it didn't really matter if I was cutting Iron Chef America or forgetting Sarah Marshall. Like I was going to make the best Iron Chef America in the history of mankind. And that's how I approached it every single day. There's a great song that has a line in it that as you get older, it has much more meaning. But it says, sometimes when you're young, time goes by so slow. And the thing is, when you're a younger person and you're like 23 and you're going, what? I don't understand. Why aren't I cutting Spielberg's movies yet? Didn't they recognize my inherent talent? It is hard when you're beginning to realize that it's going to take a lot of work to get to that position. And, it took a long time, but we got there.
That is so important, to be in something that you're so passionate about, where the journey to get to wherever you want to go becomes enjoyable at the same time. And you eventually got to feature films. Was that the dream that you always wanted to get to?
Yes. Yes.
Let's go.
When you're starting, you just take whatever work you can find, right? And I was lucky to get on, I forget what it was. There was a couple little projects. And then my first movie was in 1987. And it's so good because it's considered one of the worst movies of all time. And it's a movie called The Garbage Pail Kids. If you were to see the trailer of The Garbage Pail Kids, you would think there's no way this is a movie. There's no way, but it is. And for me, it was a very important movie because, again, I barely knew how to work the editing equipment and I didn't know a lot about the world I was in or really life in general. I was just like a 22-year-old kid who was, like, coming out of left college and enjoyed partying, and I like to work, and I wanted to do this movie thing, but I didn't even really know what it entailed, to be honest. But I found myself as the only assistant editor on the Garbage Pail Kids, and the producer and editor of that movie just took me under their wing, and they made me do everything. Like, I went down to a pack title where they make dissolves, and they showed me like the optical printers. They had me work in the back with the sound guys changing the mag tapes for a whole day. I actually physically cut negative on that movie. I had to like wear a thing to cover up my eyebrows and like a cap. And like, I worked for the negative cutters. So like they were just like, this kid doesn't know anything. So they just showed me everything. And then the editor of that ended up getting the pilot to a TV series called The Wonder Years. And so I ended up working on the first couple seasons of The Wonder Years. And that became sort of like my film school. And you can even see in my editing style and the things I choose, the kind of character building and inserting comedy and drama, or working in a world where you're doing more than one thing, is something that I've sort of been able to take with me, like going forward. And like, fundamentally, some of those TV shows, really The Wonder Years, Northern Exposure, and LA Law, are like all these TV shows where I really like got the foundation of what my editing could be.
What would you describe your editing style as?
Character first, pace second. I like to surprise people. So I do a lot of stuff where I try to do this. Hey, you're watching a comedy. Here come the jokes. Here's a joke. Boom. Here's a joke. Here's a joke. Here's a joke. Oh, this is funny, right? It's a comedy. And now you're crying. And you go, how the hell did this happen in this comedy, right? Like, if I can get that to happen. And by the way, it's not just me. Like, it has to be the group of people working together. But if I can get that to happen, I like it. The other way, too, is, if we're doing the action comedy, it's kind of the opposite, where you're going like, this is very dramatic. This is intense. Joke. Anytime I can make it where you feel something before you realize what you're going to feel, I try to make it that way.
It's sometimes when you front load the emotion, hey, here's what you're going to feel now, it's like it kind of can diminish the quality. You're sneaking it in, and then we realize, oh, I'm crying. Then you realize, oh, I'm happy. And that makes the emotional journey that we have so much more organic.
Yep.
Because I think kind of trusting the audience a little bit better because of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, isn't that like what life is like, on a typical day? I mean, you can have magical moments where you're laughing with your friends or family, and then you're crying together and you're laughing 2 minutes later. That is life. And anytime we can make that collective experience in the theater pull you through all those emotions, like my favorite movies are movies that do all of those things. They go, do you like action movies or comedies? Or I go, well, the ones I like best are the ones that do all of it. I want to have all the feelings when I go there, if possible.
What is there an instance in one of your favorite movies that probably made you discover that as well?
Part of the discovery of that is just like, if you sort of think about the evolution of comedy, just say during my career, okay? And if you look at it, like I start off with something like Naked Gun, 33 1/3, which, by the way, I love those movies, right? Hilarious. And I was working on that only like about 6 or 7 years between just sitting around with my friends in college watching Airplane and stuff. One moment, an audience member, and then I was all of a sudden working on that movie. That movie does one thing really great. It's funny, and, it's probably very inappropriate now.
You might be right, yeah.
As comedy sort of progressed through the 90s, it was a lot of character type comedies. So you had things like Tommy Boy, but you had also things like Austin Powers, right? And Tommy Boy was a pivotal movie for me, and also my mentor, Bill Kerr, who cut that movie. I was an assistant on Tommy Boy. And here's the thing, like we watched dailies on Tommy Boy. It was hilarious. Like we were like, oh my God, this is going to be the best comedy movie ever. And we put it all together. We tested it. It crushed at the test. The audience laughed. They love it. They love Chris Farley. They love the jokes. They love the movie. And the thing about that movie is it was very funny, but it had a little bit of heart. There were emotional moments in that movie that worked. So what happens is the movie comes out. It doesn't make a lot of money. And the critics hammered it. Like they hated it. But then it found an audience after its release. And it became very beloved. So by like 10 years later, people are coming up to me going, oh my God, you worked on Tommy Boy? Tell me a story from it. Can you cut our movie? Like, we're like, wow, this is good. So right from the get-go, we learned the value of like making a movie that isn't just for the first weekend, that's a movie that can hold up over time. And the reason it can hold up over time is because of the work on the characters and the fact that it didn't only just do comedy, it did comedy and had a little bit of emotion.
There's a reason why I still get compared to Austin Powers. It's because it's a great comedy, but it's also got a great character and like a really, really like fun story. And that's why still today I still get compared to him, especially with the accent and the teeth and the glasses. Everything. I look like Austin Powers a lot. Those comedy movies, I mean, they have a really, really great element of they disarm you. Like a comedy kind of disarms you, kind of makes you emotionally available. And then when you do sneak in those really great serious moments, and it's like those hit you just a little bit harder. And then that's what gives you a great memory. And then that's probably one of the main reasons why those films just last longer.
You were saying that character is the number one thing that you look for when you're editing. And it sounds like character is also one of the first things that makes a movie stand the test of time.
The number one television shows, right, that people watch, they like the characters. And that's why they'll watch them again and again, even if they know the story, even if they know the jokes. They like those people, right? And if you apply it to like the web, like the people who are getting millions and millions of views, most of the time it's because they've created some form of a character that people want to view over and over and over again.
What would you say to some of the younger editors that are just doing TikTok and just doing YouTube and trying to figure out what editing is? Do you have any rules that you like to follow when creating a scene or trying to create an emotional reaction that you apply to most edits?
One of the fundamental things is you just have to be brutally honest with yourself creatively. And I think whether you're making your own little thing or you're working on a big stage, you have to look at the material and you have to say, is this doing what I want it to do? Is it good enough? Have I achieved what I want to achieve at the level that it could be? And is there a way I could make it even better? So like every scene, if I'm working on a movie for a year, every day I come in, if I look at that scene, the only thing running through my brain is, how do I make this better? Can I make it better? Is there another thing? Is it 2 frames? Is it another take? Can I flip it around? I sort of equate it to this. If you've ever been a runner, running is about like endurance. It's about overcoming the pain of running because it hurts after a while to run. And eventually you have to go, no, man, I'm going to run through this and I'm going to keep running, right? And editing is a similar challenge, but it's a mental version of that, right? Because after a while, your brain is saying, no, man, that's good what you have. Don't worry about that. Work on something else. Do another problem. This is fine. Nobody's giving you a note on this. People like this. It's okay. Let it go, right? And like, to me, that's like a big warning sign. And I'm just like, oh, this must be hard because my brain doesn't want to do it. So I just roll up the sleeves, dig in and go, is there a better version? And, with digital editing, you can make many, many versions. And if you're working with like really strong creative people, they'll create a space for you to try things. And, that's one of the wonderful things about digital editing is like you're not cutting negative every time you make a decision. So you can try things. And that's what I encourage people to do.
Since we talked about, TikTok and YouTube briefly at the beginning of this episode, do you watch YouTube, number one? And then what is kind of coming up on your feed currently?
I poke around and watch all those things. Like I got to tell you, a year ago, I didn't even know what TikTok was, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, everybody's making all these jokes and, like TikTok. I'm like, I better go look and see what this is. So I would spend like 5 minutes every night just like flipping through to see what it is. It's like very addictive. So I really do try to limit myself, but apparently I like to see soccer plays.
Let's go.
And I like to see people falling down, apparently, because a lot of falling down, a lot of like blooper type things, people wiping out comes up all the time. And YouTube, I am addicted to product reviews. Like I can't really go out, so I shop a lot on the web, and then I want to see like those reviews. So I watch a lot of reviews. I watch a lot of reviews for like really expensive cars that I'm never going to buy, right? But I want to see all the gadgets inside the car, right? And I'm just like, oh, that's sick. And then my wife's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, $180,000 car. She's like, what? I'm like, don't worry.
It's always been fascinating to see that everyone's YouTube feed and everyone's TikTok feed is so unique to them. Yeah. So it's always been fascinating to seeing what other people's feeds are.
There is so much change in our world right now, like the speed of change, that there's no way any of us can really comprehend what this does or what this is going to do, right? It's like, it's one of those things where it's an exciting time, but you're just like, wow, like it will take, so long for people to understand how this affected us all. Because, even just like 20 years ago, a picture was downloading on the internet. It was like,
Yep. I remember that. Yeah.
We're taking pictures of billions of miles away it's crazy what's happening, like crazy. But I like tech stuff, so I find it fun.
I think we're all enjoying and excited to see what this change is, but it's also we're also terrified of what this can be.
I agree. I think the best thing to do when you're overwhelmed is just go to a movie theater and sit and pay to go watch a movie in a movie theater. That would be my advice to everybody. Black Adam would be good. It's not overwhelming. Yeah.